Good morning, everyone. I am Martin McCluskey. I'm Labour's candidate here in Inverclyde in Renfrewshire West, and I want to welcome you all to Greenock, where I guarantee you the sun always shines like this. Today we are just 33 days away from the general election, and in just a few weeks' time people will begin to vote by post. But already a week into this campaign, the choice is becoming clear. Change with Labour, or more of the same chaos and incompetence with the Tories. In this constituency, at door after door that I'm knocking, people are telling me that they want them out. And when I ask which them they're talking about, the answer most often is both of them. Because the truth is that after 14 years of the Tories and 17 years of the SNP, people here want a change. Here in Inverclyde and Renfrewshire West, I know what people have told me they want to see. A stable economy, higher family incomes, stronger public services and decency and integrity restored to public life. And for this area, plans for GB energy and investment in green jobs are essential. Where we are standing was once the beating heart of industrial Scotland, with yards that sent ships around the world. But we need industry and manufacturing to be part of our future, not just stories from our past. With Labour's plans, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make our country and communities like this one leaders in green jobs. And this morning, Anas, Kier and Ed will set out in more detail what change with Labour means. But before we hear from them, I want to introduce you to Amelie Burt, who is one of our newest Labour Party members at Inverclyde and is going to tell us about her hopes for the future. Thank you, Amelie.
Good morning. My name is Amelie Burt and I have the privilege of welcoming you to the Beacon Arts Centre today and welcoming everyone to Inverclyde. I hope I don't make anyone in the audience feel too old, but when I was born, the SNP were already in government. So when I hear about the opportunity for change, it means so much to me and to my friends. One of my first memories is when I was just 5 years old and my granddad was campaigning to be elected. And I've watched with pride as my Aunt Francesca got elected to the council as well. Unfortunately, I'm still too old to vote in this election, although I'm pleased that Keir Starmer agrees that 16 and 17-year-olds should get the vote. But that doesn't mean this election doesn't matter to me. It does. It really matters. So I'm helping out, knocking on doors and speaking to voters in Inverclyde so that we can get Martin McCluskey elected as our MP. If anyone wants to come here and help us out, you are more than welcome. For me, this election is a moment of hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. The idea that there might be a Labour government in just a few weeks' time fills me with excitement. It would mean that me and my friends can have the opportunities in life that Labour has always given to young people. The opportunity for a brighter future. And it is a huge honour for me to introduce a politician who has given us hope here in Scotland. Please welcome the leader of our party, Anna Sauer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Amelie, first of all, thank you for reminding me I'm no longer a member of Young Labour as we look to the future in this election. I know how important this election is for you and for young people here in Inverclyde, across Scotland and right across this UK. Because this election, like every election, is a choice between a Tory government that wants to take away opportunities from young people or a Labour government that will create opportunities and give young people hope for the future. That's what's at stake in this election. But we can only deliver change for young people and for communities across our country if we elect Scottish Labour MPs. MPs like Martin McCluskey, our fantastic candidate here in Inverclyde and Renfrewshire West. And I know from listening to people here in Inverclyde and right across Scotland that they are crying out for change. They're tired of the sleaze, tired of the chaos, tired of the failure to grow our economy and protect our public services. And after 14 years, we finally have an opportunity to rid ourselves of this rotten Tory government, an opportunity that we cannot afford to miss. And so this election is a straight choice between a broken status quo or change with Labour. And today, alongside Keir, we are unveiling our 6 first steps for change that will deliver for people across Scotland. We will focus on what matters to you, delivering economic stability, maximising Scotland's influence, cutting NHS waiting times, driving down bills, creating jobs and boosting pay for working families. So on the 4th of July, this is the change that is on the ballot paper when you vote in this election. The Tories have crashed the economy, raising bills for working people, all while they tried to ram through tax cuts for billionaires and slash funding for frontline services. So Labour's first step in government is to bring back economic stability to our country. And with the careful economic management of Rachel Reeves as our Chancellor, we will grow our economy, bring down the cost of your mortgage and not make working people pay the price for government's economic incompetence. So delivering economic growth is our top priority in this election and for a Labour government. Because it's that growth that helps create more jobs for working people, and it's that growth that delivers the investment that our public services so desperately need. And friends, no public service is more important than our National Health Service. And right now, on the SNP's watch, 1 in 6 Scots are on an NHS waiting list. Over 840,000. More than 1 in 10 have been waiting more than a year. And I know every single person, someone who's waiting for an appointment, waiting for treatment, or forced to go private because they can't stand either the pain or the anxious wait for months on end. So a Labour government will start the process of change for our NHS. By closing the Tories' non-dom tax loophole and cracking down on tax avoidance, we will deliver £134 million every year for Scotland's NHS. And that could create 160,000 more NHS appointments every year right here in Scotland, bringing down those waiting lists. The Labour Party built the NHS, the Labour Party rescued the NHS, and it now falls on the Labour Party to rescue and rebuild our NHS again. But it's not just the crisis in our NHS that worries so many people across Scotland. It's also the cost of living crisis. Families forced to pay more for their energy bills than ever before. Food prices going through the roof and families struggling to make ends meet. And that's why Labour is committed to setting up GB Energy, a publicly owned energy generation company headquartered right here in Scotland, to cut bills for good, and so we finally realise Scotland's energy potential. That's billions of investment for Scotland, more jobs for Scotland, lower bills for Scotland, and greater energy security for Scotland. That's 53,000 new clean energy jobs here in Scotland, and another 16,000 jobs with our Warm Homes plans to insulate hundreds of thousands of Scottish homes. A transformational opportunity for Scotland that once again we cannot afford to miss. And one which will be funded by the windfall tax on the huge profits of energy giants. A windfall tax which shamefully the SNP continues to oppose. So we cannot afford to miss this opportunity to build a greener Scotland. So only a vote for Scottish Labour in this election will switch on GB Energy, create more jobs and cut energy bills for people right across Scotland. And to help families even more, we will also make work pay. With Angela Rayner's New Deal for working people, the most transformative change in workers' rights in a generation. It It will be the greatest transfer of wealth and power into the hands of working people and their families, ending the scandal of fire and rehire, banning exploitative zero-hour contracts, extending employment rights and delivering a genuine living wage and a pay increase right across the country. And that increase in people's pay will help them address the cost of living crisis, but also lift people out of poverty. So the power to deliver this new deal now rests in the hands of the people of Scotland. And again, only by voting Scottish Labour will you get a government that is always on the side of working people. And to maximise the impact of our new deal, we will also create jobs and opportunities here in Scotland. We will support first-time buyers. We will improve access to apprenticeships. And we will make sure our young people have the skills they need for the jobs of tomorrow. Friends, you all know this. Our country is brimming with talent. And I truly believe that Scotland's best days lie ahead of us. But we have to seize this opportunity to maximise Scotland's influence. We need to boost exports and attract investment to grow the Scottish economy. And by using the UK's global trade networks, we can promote Scottish businesses so we increase our exports abroad and create more jobs here at home. So by voting for Scottish Labour MPs, as Keir has said, we will have a UK Labour government with Scotland at its heart. The six steps we are outlining today are a down payment on our commitment to a decade of national renewal. They are the cornerstones of our plan to transform our country. But this is just the start. With Keir Starmer in Downing Street, we will have a government on the side of the people of Scotland, on your side. Because Labour is the only party trying to pull our country together. This election isn't about how you voted in the last election, or the one before that, or even how you voted in the referendums. No matter how you voted in the past, if you agree that our country needs change, then vote Scottish Labour. Because we stand at a key moment in our nation's history. There's a choice ahead of us. We cannot afford 5 more years of this rotten Tory government. We cannot afford 5 more years of sleaze, chaos, incompetence with higher bills punishing working families. And we cannot afford to miss this opportunity for change. So on the 4th of July, a vote for Scottish Labour is a vote to boot out this rotten Tory government, a vote to maximise Scotland's influence, and a vote to deliver the change Scotland needs. Together, let's go win that future together. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Anas, for those very inspiring words. My name is Mike Souter. I am a Scottish entrepreneur, and I've worked with businesses right the way across the world. Now, in these tough times, some people will try to tell you that this is as good as it gets, that the best that any government can do is to manage decline. I reject that negative mindset. Economic growth is not some abstract concept dreamt up by politicians. It's about working together, government and business, to create more new jobs, better wages and more investment to stimulate the economy and to improve people's lives. Increased prosperity can fund better public services and help support those who are struggling to support themselves. Under the current Conservative and SNP administrations, Scotland has gone backwards economically. Productivity has declined, growth is in reverse, and ambition has stagnated. Scotland produces fewer new business startups per head than anywhere else in Britain. Yet Scotland is one of the most enterprising nations on earth. It shouldn't be this way. And that's why I back the vision and commitment of Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Anas Sarwar, and the Labour Party. I support their vision to deliver the conditions required for economic recovery, to restore Scotland's position as one of Europe's most innovative and enterprising places to do business. Change is coming, and Scottish business will be right at the heart of that. Thank you. It's now my very great pleasure to introduce the Deputy Leader of Scottish Labour, the brilliant Jackie Baillie.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. After 14 years of the Tories and 17 years of the SNP, our NHS is fighting for its life. Now, we can all see it, because almost 1 in 6 Scots are stuck on an NHS waiting list. Incredible. Too hard to care for us, are exhausted and demoralised. Lives are being put at risk every single day because services simply can't cope. But this can't be as good as it gets. Our NHS needs change, and Labour is ready to deliver it. Labour founded our NHS, and we will always fight for it. Right across the UK, Labour will boost funding for public services. We will crack down on tax avoidance, close non-dom loopholes, so that everyone pays their fair share to benefit our National Health Service. These plans will deliver an extra £134 million for Scotland every single year. And my message to the SNP is that they need to spend every single penny of that on our NHS. Now, this would deliver an extra 160,000 appointments a year, cutting waiting lists, clearing the backlog, getting people the care that they need, restoring the founding promise of our NHS of free care at the point of need. Labour will fix the fundamentals, and we will give our NHS a fighting chance. But we need change in Holyrood too. We need an end to SNP incompetence, mismanagement and waste. A real workforce plan to give our NHS and social care the staff they so desperately need. An end to delayed discharge, which pours millions down the drain every single year. Now, in 1948, we created our NHS. In 1997, we rescued our NHS. And on the 5th of July, 2024, the 76th birthday of our NHS, we will begin the process of rescuing it again. Friends, this is the change Scotland needs. This is the change a Labour government will deliver. Thank you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce my friend and the inspirational Deputy Leader of the UK Labour Party, Angela Rayner. Good day.
Thank you, Jackie. And just over a month's time, Scotland will be going to the polls to make a big choice. A choice between change or more of the same. More chaos, more division, more managed decline, if it's ever been managed, that is. But here in Scotland, this choice has never been so critical for all of us. Because whatever Scotland decides, will decide whether the rest of the UK gets changed too. I don't say this lightly. We need you. We want an end to this chaos, but we'll only get it if Scotland chooses to vote for it. We can only make work pay and restore dignity and respect at work with a new deal for working people. And we need Scotland to send a government to Westminster, not just a message. You don't need me to tell you how the Tories have treated working people. We all know how hard it is to get decent jobs with stable hours and decent pay that you can raise your family on. And it's a problem for our businesses too. They can't retain the workers or reach the productivity they need to grow. Our plans will be good for workers, good for business and good for our economy. And the SNP, they're just as bad, thinking they can pull the wool over our eyes. But we all know that Scotland is the zero-hour contracts capital of the UK. And we won't forget that they promised these casual hours as a positive employment destination. And just contrast that with what we're promising. The biggest upgrade to rights at work for a generation. As Anna said, a boost to wages with a genuine living wage, and by extending sick pay to the lowest paid workers, ensuring dignity at work by ending fire and rehire and banning exploitative zero-hour contracts, and making work more family-friendly. A new and true partnership between government, trade unions and business to unleash the real potential of this country. This is how Scotland can change. And we'll hit the ground running, introducing our legislation with 100 days. And this is core to our mission of growth, raising living standards everywhere. But it can only happen if Scotland votes for it. So Scotland, we have a positive future, hope, all within our grasp. And now, I am delighted to pass over to the next architect of Great British Energy, Ed Miliband.
Thanks, Angela. Look, every family in Scotland has faced rocketing energy bills during this crisis. And we have been hit harder than other countries because we have been left so exposed to energy markets controlled by dictators like Putin. And the Tories and the SNP both bear the blame. The Tories, because they've blocked homegrown clean energy because of their boneheaded dogma, and the SNP have failed to build it because of their chaos and incompetence. They are the two faces of energy failure, and Labour says it's time to turn the page. And our mission is simple, which is to ensure energy security and cut bills for good with the biggest investment in homegrown clean energy in our history. Because clean energy we produce at home is cheaper than imported fossil fuels and more secure because dictators can't control it. And with our plan, Scotland will be the clean energy powerhouse of Britain. Our first step, Great British Energy, our new publicly owned energy company headquartered here in Scotland, investing in the future, floating offshore wind, carbon capture, hydrogen and clean energy projects across this nation, mobilising the North Sea and its communities to decarbonise Britain and lead the world again. Tens of thousands of good jobs, with strong trade unions, re-industrialising our country. And what a contrast with our opponents. You know, people will remember this. The SNP promised a publicly owned energy company for Scotland 7 years ago and abysmally failed to deliver. And the Tories? You know, it's going to surprise you this. They believe in public ownership of our energy system. By France, by Sweden, by Norway. They'll have any public ownership as long as it's not British public ownership. We think different, and that's why we're going to set up Great British Energy. And Great British Energy is a central part of Labour's mission for 2030 clean power, a mission endorsed today by Sir Patrick Vallance, the scientist who helped save millions of lives and deliver the COVID vaccine. His endorsement shows that Labour has a plan for energy security which is both bold and credible, and we should heed his wider message. It's time to mobilise our scientists, our engineers, our businesses, our innovators, our communities across Scotland in this mission. It's time to end the defeatism that says Britain can't lead anymore. It's time to face up to the climate crisis and take it on. And when Keir talks about mission-driven government, it's not a slogan, it's a call to arms for our country. We are the optimists in this election. We're the optimists that say Britain and Scotland's best days lie ahead. And this is the election choice. Lower bills, energy security and climate leadership with Labour. Or higher bills, energy insecurity and climate delay with the Tories and SNP. A Labour government ensuring better lives for people today and fulfilling our obligations to the generations of tomorrow. This is the prize within our grasp. This is the mission of the next Labour government. And now I'd like to hand over to my friend, our brilliant Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland, Ian Murray.
Ed, thank you very much indeed, and good morning. I'm Ian Murray, the Shadow Scottish Secretary, candidate for Edinburgh South and co-chair of the Scottish General Election Campaign. I'm here to talk about how Scottish Labour MPs like Martin, at the heart of a UK Labour government, will maximise Scotland's influence. No matter where you go in the world, when you say you're Scottish, it immediately invokes a response based on what Scotland has given and continues to give to the world. That is one of the biggest opportunities we have to grow our economy and create jobs. By using the reach of the UK's global trade networks and embassies to promote Scottish businesses, boost exports and attract investment, we can create more jobs here in Scotland. Scotland is the best country on earth. Our produce, like whisky and salmon, are world-leading. Our achievements in services, the field of science and innovation, are pound for pound the greatest of any country on earth. On services, science, produce, creative industries, tourism, research and development, we can lead the world, create the jobs and drive investment into this country. All we need is a global platform to do so. But for more than a decade, we've had two governments more interested in selling their version of Scotland to Scots, rather than selling Scotland to the world. That changes with a Labour government. We will work with the Scottish Government to promote our brilliant country and all we have to offer. I want to lead a Scottish trade mission to every corner of the earth and make the Scotland office Scotland's window to the world. It isn't just Be Scotland the Brave, it will be Scotland the brand, and it will deliver jobs, investment and growth that will go back into our public services like the NHS. I can't stress enough the difference it will make, having Scottish Labour MPs who want to deliver change, rather than MPs from other parties that only deliver stunts and unproductive opposition. Remember Ian Blackford leading a walkout at Prime Minister's questions. And SNP MPs are threatening even not to turn up if they get re-elected. For too long, we've had two parties determined to use politics to send a message. But in a matter of weeks, We can use politics to do much more than that and send a government. With Scottish Labour MPs at its heart, making decisions to improve our country and your communities on the government benches. Let's take this incredible opportunity to remove the Tories and maximise Scotland's influence. The only way to do that is to vote Labour. This is the change Scotland so desperately needs. Change to unlock opportunity for young people. And you're just about to hear how that can be unlocked with this wonderful, inspirational story from Lorna. Lorna.
My story is a different one to most you'll hear today. I grew up in Aberdeen. I was in care from aged 4 to 16. I fell pregnant at 16, and for a long time I was a young mum making my way in the world. Also aged 16, I got some qualifications from school and started my career, which I loved. After spending my childhood in care, it's probably no wonder I myself then chose to become a care worker. But after 7 or 8 years, I started to wonder if I could go further. So I looked online and found a welding course at Fife College. I'd never picked up a tool before, but I thought, why not? I'd always preferred practical work. I paid £500 from my savings so that every night for 12 weeks I learned a new skill, welding. After that, Fife College and Harland and Wolff awarded me with a scholarship, which when I qualify later will make me a fully qualified welder. That wasn't an easy decision, especially for a working class girl like me in a male-dominated industry. I'll always be grateful to Dennis, my tutor at Fife College, and the guys at Harland and Wolff who put their trust in a girl to succeed and knock down the barriers to getting on. But it's not enough that I got on. Others need that chance. We need to spread more opportunity to more young people across the country. That's why I'm fully behind the Labour Party's plans to create opportunities for young people everywhere. It's a no-brainer. We need to give young girls like me the confidence and skills to be brave and back themselves, especially in careers that aren't traditional. Labour know how important this is, and that's why I'm very happy to introduce the man who will bring forward the change in Scotland and the UK, Keir Starmer.
Lorna, can I say thank you? That was fantastic. What a story. What you've done, that's a story that should be told right across Scotland, inspiring so many young people. And not only the story, but for you to walk from there up onto this stage and deliver it in front of all these people and the cameras. That is what inspiration is all about. And I can tell you, with our plans for infrastructure, we've got a lot of work coming your way as a welder. Thank you, Anas, and all the other speakers. Anas, thank you for your friendship and your leadership here in Scotland, along with Jackie and with Ian, because together we have transformed and changed the Labour Party and put it back in the service of working people. So thank you, Anas. And it's great to be back here in Scotland. It's sunny. And I seem to be here every other week. And that's not just because of the tandoori salmon in Mr. Singh's in Glasgow, which is getting quite a reputation. But it is fantastic to be here and to be with all of you to launch these first steps because, look, the wait is over. The Prime Minister has called a general election. We've waited a long time for this. Scotland has waited a long time for this. A chance for an election, a chance to change. So if you're a family that have been struggling with the cost of living day after day, week after week, month after month, if you're a business that's been struggling now for a number of years against the odds, if you're in service to your country or your community, then this election is for you. Because by the power of our democracy, the beauty, if you like, of our democracy, the power shifts to you. Your chance, your vote, your chance to vote for change, for yourself, your future, your community, and for Scotland. And I say to this, make sure you use your vote, your voice, not to send a message. The SNP say they want you to vote to send a message. Send a message to go and sit on the opposition benches protesting. I don't want you to vote to send a message. I want you to vote to send a government. A Labour government with Scotland at its heart. So this is the chance for change, to end the chaos and division, to turn the page and to rebuild Scotland and rebuild Britain. Because we have to stop the chaos. In Westminster, we've had 14 years now, 14 years of chaos and division. In Scotland, 17 years of spinning round in circles, going round and round in circles, getting nowhere. In Westminster, 5 prime ministers in a row. Here in Scotland, 3 first ministers in 3 years. That's failure, that's not delivering, that is not good for Scotland. And there's a cost. There's a human cost. There's always a human cost of chaos and division and spinning around, getting nowhere. And Anas and I went to a community centre, not that far from here. And we were at an event, we finished the event, and then I was doing a short piece to camera using an auto cue. So I went to the edge of the centre, set it up, and did my piece to camera. There was a 7-year-old girl there. She'd been with us during the event. She was very, very sparkly, huge personality, quite incredible. And as I was doing my piece to camera, I saw her come over and watch what I was doing, really intrigued. What is this? This camera rolling, some words. And so when I finished, I said to her, well, do you want to have a go? Do you want to see what it's like? And the words she said to me will stick with me forever. She said, I don't read, me. I don't read, me. I carried those words all the way home with me. That went right through me because that is the cost that she is paying for the failure here in Scotland under the SNP. And they're not going to change. The Tories won't change in Westminster. The SNP won't change here. It'll be more chaos, more division, more sleaze, more scandal, and they'll feel more entitled if they get more at this election. So we have to stop the chaos. We have to draw a line. But here's the good news. You don't have to put up with it anymore. You can choose change. But don't take anything for granted. If you want change, you have to choose change and vote for change. And make sure that we boot the Tories out and end the chaos. Because change is on the ballot on the 4th of July. Make no mistake, there are 2 futures, 2 paths that we could take. Down one path, the future is more chaos, more division, more of the same. Down the other path, hope and unity, a chance to take Scotland forward, to take Britain forward. Now, Anas and I, Jackie, Ian, Angela, Ed, the whole party has changed the Labour Party to put it back in the service of working people. And what we ask now at this election, humbly, is the opportunity to change Scotland and to change Britain and put them back in the service of working people. Now, I know that in the past, some people here in Scotland who wanted the Tories out didn't vote Labour, because they didn't think that we could win. But we've changed Labour. We now have that opportunity, and you have to vote for it. Because there's no change without Scotland. There's no Labour without Scotland. And I believe that the solidarity of working people is not just our identity, it is our argument. The single greatest force, probably the only force, that can bring our four nations together. And that's why Scotland is at the heart of our mission. And Anas and I have worked side by side to deliver across Scotland. We've got huge ambition for Scotland. But like all ambition, it has to start with first steps. First steps that we've set out this morning. As you'd expect, ruthlessly well prepared, fully costed, fully funded, and ready to go. Step one, economic stability. The foundation of growth, the only way to keep taxes, inflation and mortgages low. Because if we learnt one thing from recent years, it's that if you lose control of the economy, it's working people who pay the price. Liz Truss lost control of the economy. And in Scotland, everybody with a mortgage is paying the price month by month by month. The average increase, £120 in Scotland per month. People desperately worried about whether they can afford it, what they can't do as a result, even thinking of having to sell their house and downsize. How do you think they feel when Rishi Sunak says, we've turned a corner, everything's fine? How do you think they feel when they see those that advise Liz Truss in the House of Lords swanning around because Rishi Sunak was too weak to block them? They are paying the price. And we visited a food bank, Anas and I, not so long ago. And this was in Glasgow. A real shock. People going to pick up their food because they couldn't afford for themselves to put food on their own table. Shocking in its own right. Shocking particularly when we saw people coming from work, having finished work, to pick up a food parcel. That is the price that they are paying. There's always a cost to chaos and division, and that's why stability is our first step. Step two, we will work with you to help cut NHS waiting times in Scotland. Now, it is impossible to overstate how many people are on waiting lists and the impact it has on them. It's now 1 in 6 in Scotland. I was here last year saying it was 1 in 7. It's now 1 in 6. That means almost everybody watching or listening this is probably either on a waiting list themselves or know someone who is. That's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. And what we can achieve together is 160,000 extra appointments every year here in Scotland. What a difference that would make. And we would pay for it by cracking down on tax avoidance and getting rid of the non-dom tax status. Step three, make work pay with the New Deal for working people. As Angela says, the greatest levelling up of workers' rights in a generation. And what does that mean? 0 hours contracts banned, fire and rehire ended, a genuine living wage. Because I believe that everybody is entitled to dignity and respect at work. That is a bare minimum. But I also know that dignity and respect at work are essential for economic growth. Step three. Step four, Great British Energy, that publicly owned company, owned by the taxpayer, making money for the taxpayer, harnessing clean power. Do you remember what the Tories said 10 years ago? Cut the green crap. Stop the investment. Stop insulating our house. Made us more exposed to what was going on in the world. And as a result, your bills higher. I want to be clear. We're not turning off the taps for oil and gas. That'll be part of the mix for decades to come. But the transition is coming. We can't stick our head in the sand. And as Ed said, renewables are cheaper. There's a massive prize here. Lower bills, security, the next generation of jobs. So clean power is the best opportunity we've had in a generation for the next generation of jobs. Now, other countries are in the race. Look across Europe. Look to America. And Rishi Sunak's in the changing room. I want to be in the race, and I want to win the race. Why not Scotland? I went to Aberdeen, and there's a glimpse of the future there. Because what I saw and talked through with the energy sector there and the workers there was the pipelines they were going to use for carbon capture, the skills they would use for the next generation of jobs. And I asked them, how long would these jobs last for? And they said, decades upon decades upon decades. Jobs for the next generation here in Scotland. And Scotland can and Scotland will lead the clean energy revolution. And that's why Great British Energy, which will cut those bills, which will give us that security and those jobs, will be headquarters right here in Scotland. Step 5, maximising Scotland's influence on the world stage. I'll give you an example of that. Scotland has the second largest offshore wind capacity in the world. Second largest. Yet 3 times as many jobs are in Denmark. That's shocking. I went to Whiteley's wind farm. Some people have heard this story, but it really sticks with me. This is just outside of Glasgow. There's, I don't know, 200, 300 wind turbines there. Really huge bits of engineering and skill and design. And I went up and they were turning around, generating energy. Had 2 problems. One, we didn't have a battery big enough to store the energy, so they were turning them off because of a lack of planning. Second, I asked a question. I said, how many of these incredible pieces of kit, this incredible manufacturing engineering, how many of them were built in Scotland? None. Not one. They were towed in from other countries. Not a single one was built here. We have to end that. We can change that. Floating offshore wind is the next generation. We can get ahead. Not only have floating offshore wind, but build it here in Scotland with manufacturing jobs, engineering, building on the skills that we have here. Promoting Scotland abroad, Scottish business abroad, boost exports, and attract investment needed for jobs here, good jobs, in Scotland. Step 6, jobs and opportunities for young people. Training people for the future, for the jobs and the work and the lives they're actually going to live. Make sure that young people can get the apprentices they need, whether in welding or anything else. Support first-time buyers. And work with Anas to create 50,000 Scottish jobs in clean energy. So this election is the chance. It's the chance for change, the chance for renewal, the chance for Scotland and Britain to go forward. A new generation of Scots on Labour government benches, working with me for Scotland and delivering for Scotland. And I believe Scotland can lead the way, lead the change, stop the chaos, turn the page, rebuild. Now make sure you take that chance. Make sure you vote Labour. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Give her a wave, man. Look at it.
Great. Now, we're going to take a number of questions from the media, and I've got a list, I think and I hope, of all those that want to ask questions. So I'm going to start with BBC Scotland and David. David.
Thank you, Sir Keir. David Wallace-Lockhart from BBC Scotland. Over the past 48 hours, you've ditched candidates. In recent months, you've ditched policies. How can Scots be confident you won't ditch these first steps when they no longer suit you?
Those first steps are fully funded, fully costed, fully set out, and what a game changer they would be. Great British Energy. You saw Sir Patrick Vallance, who's gone through our plans, validated our plans. This is the man who advised the government during the pandemic, literally saved lives, and was one of the main drivers of the vaccine task force. He has said how credible this plan is, what a difference it would make. These are serious propositions about changing Scotland and changing Britain for the future. And I'm absolutely sure that they'll make a massive difference here across Scotland. Thank you very much. Carl from ITV.
Thank you, Sir Keir. Angela Rayner, down here on the front row, says that Diane Abbott should be allowed to stand if she wants to. Anas Sarwar, standing beside you, says he agrees with Angela Rayner. Do you agree with them, or are you sticking to the line that no decision has been taken?
Well, no decision has been taken, so that's the factual position. No decision to bar Diane. Obviously, she's got the whip back, and she's been a trailblazer for many years. But the fact remains, no decision has been taken. Thank you, Carl. Tamara from Sky.
Tamara Cohen, Sky News. Sir Keir, unions that back your party say this energy policy is a ban without a plan because it won't create as many jobs as may end up on the scrap heap. Are you worried it will lose you votes here in Scotland, which is so crucial to a Labour victory?
Look, I've been very, very clear when it comes to the transition that we're not turning off the taps. Oil and gas will be part of the mix for many years. We're not revoking any licences. But a transition is coming. And when Ed and I went to Aberdeen with Anas just a few months ago to talk to the workforce, of course, to talk to the unions, to talk to the energy sector, everybody knows the transition is coming. Everybody's working towards that transition. The investment is already beginning in that transition. Thought is being given about that carbon capture and how the same skills and pipelines could be used. The worst thing we could do now is do what Rishi Sunak is doing and put our head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. And I'll tell you for why. That's what happened when coal was coming to an end. And we are still paying the price in communities across the whole of Scotland and across the whole of the United Kingdom. I'm not prepared to let that ever happen under a future Labour government. This is about the next generation of jobs and the generation after that, because I'm never going to allow a transition to happen which hasn't been planned for. So yes, we want to make sure we guarantee those jobs. We create even more jobs for the future, and jobs that are lasted, not just 10 years or 20 years, but, decades and decades and decades to come. The worst thing we can do is put our head in the sand, because that is exactly what the Prime Minister is doing. Anna.
Can I just add to that? Look, I can understand why workers in the North East who have heard 14 years of promises from the Conservatives that have been broken and 17 years of promises from the SNP that have been broken, being really nervous about what happens next. And that's why it's really crucial that we demonstrate that we understand the transition needs to happen. We're all agreed on that, but we work together in collaboration. And as Keir has said, and I'm saying it directly to people in the oil and gas sector, the renewable sector right now, there will be no turning off the tap. There will be no cliff edge. Oil and gas will play a significant role for decades to come, partly because it's the right thing for us to do. We have to protect jobs. But also, if we are to get the scale of investment that's required, we need the oil and gas giants to be part of that investment as we push them towards that renewable future. That's a joint-up plan that is good for Aberdeen, good for the North East, good for Scotland and good for the UK, and one that UK Labour government will deliver.
Thank you. Chris, GB News.
Chris Hope, GB News. Sir Keir Starmer, is convicted criminal Donald Trump a man you can do business with if you're Prime Minister in 5 weeks' time? And on your Green announcement today, what if the wind stops blowing? Will the lights turn off?
Chris, on the... obviously, first and foremost, we respect the court's decision in relation to the decision in the Trump case. There's sentencing still to go and possible appeals, but we respect the court process. In the end, it is for the American people to decide who they want to elect as their president. And if we're privileged enough to come into government, we will work with whoever is elected President of the United Kingdom. That's what you would expect. We have a special relationship with the US that transcends whoever the President is, but it is an unprecedented situation. There's no doubt about that. And there's a long way yet to go, I think, in relation to what happens next. Thank you, Chris. And on the question of wind, look, it's always going to be a mix of renewables for the future. You know, solar, offshore wind, nuclear, hydrogen, they're all part of the mix. But the important thing is this: oil and gas is running out. It isn't going to last forever. We can't ignore that. The transition to renewables is where the sector is. If you go to Aberdeen and talk to the sector, they are talking about the investment they need to put in renewables. It's cheaper. It gives us energy security, because oil and gas is sold onto the international market. We don't control the price, and hence, proof of that, if you needed it, was when Ukraine was invaded, our prices went up. If we had control of our prices, that wouldn't have happened. So lower bills, energy security, and the jobs of the future. That's why other countries are in this race. That's why the Americans are in this race. I don't want us to sit this race out and then in 10 or 20 years regret it when all the jobs and the energy production is elsewhere, and we haven't done it for ourselves. We have incredible resources, incredible sort of natural resources, as well as skills. We need to take advantage of that. We need to be in the race to win the race. Why not Scotland, would be what I would say. Thank you, Chris. Ewan from STV.
Thank you. Ewan Petrie, STV News. Sir Keir, you've guaranteed that your energy plans won't cost thousands of jobs in Scotland, as the sector predicts. How can you make that guarantee, and what is it based on?
Well, the guarantee is based on the fact that we're not turning off the taps, we're not revoking the licences, and then oil and gas is part of the mix for decades to come. On top of that, there will be new jobs, tens of thousands of new jobs, created by the transition to renewable energy. And by locating GB Energy in Scotland, it makes Scotland the centre of that, because I'm very conscious that those jobs need to be in Scotland, in the sectors, using the skills that we already have. And that's why this transition, unlike the transition for coal, will be one where we preserve and build and ensure the jobs are there, not just elsewhere in the United Kingdom, but here in Scotland, using the skills that we already have. We've got probably offshore skills, the like of which the rest of the world hasn't got. We can use those skills in renewables. So I'm very confident that we can not just preserve the jobs that we've got, but also to create the jobs that we need for the future. And by sticking our head in the sand and pretending it's not happening, we are actually doing the worst of worst things for people who work in the energy sector. And in 20 years, they would look back on a government that took no action and say, how on earth did you allow that to happen and leave us in this situation? Anas?
I would just add one thing, Ewan, which is I don't accept that that's what the leaders in the industry think. If you can see, there's over 120 business leaders just this week who have backed Labour's economic growth plan. What I do recognise, though, is that much of the investment, as Keir has said, we're competing on a global race here. And so when people are pitching to their international boards to make those investments in Scotland rather than anyone else, they are looking to see what the framework looks like. And right now, Scotland and the UK is weak because of the decisions made by this UK government, Tory government and this SNP government, and therefore investment is going elsewhere. By working in genuine partnership and collaboration and demonstrating that we're going to put skin in the game by having GB Energy, a publicly owned energy generation company that's going to make that public investment, I think we can attract that investment to come to Scotland. And therefore, I don't accept the attack from our opponents who want to throw up big, scary numbers. Remember, they tried to do it back in 1997 when Labour was promising a windfall tax on utilities and was promising to introduce a national minimum wage. The very same political opponents then said it would cost hundreds of thousands of jobs in Scotland and jobs across the UK. What happened instead? Instead, our economy grew faster, more jobs were created, and people were lifted out of poverty. The same will happen again after this election.
Don't underestimate the significance of what Sir Patrick Vallance has said today, because this is the man, an expert in his field, who played such a central part in the vaccine rollout and the task force. And he's looked at our plans and validated our plans. And so the sort of attack that they're not thought through, etc., it just falls away when you look at what Patrick Vallance has to say and the reputation that he brings and the experience that he brings in what that vaccine rollout during the pandemic was incredible, was something I think many people thought couldn't be done. He was absolutely central to that. He's now looked at our plans for the energy transition and said, these are going to work. That is incredible validation. Thank you so much. Libby from The Guardian.
Hello, Sir Keir.
Oh, sorry.
Hi there.
I just heard the voice.
That's okay. We've got Martin Ford KC in The Guardian this morning talking about his concerns that the Labour Party is underestimating how its treatment of Diane Abbott and Faiza Shaheen is impacting voters, warning that it's leaving some black voters feeling they don't have a political home. What's your response to that?
I would say we've got fantastic candidates across the country, including many black candidates, leading candidates. I'm very proud of the team that we put on the pitch. The choice at this election is a very clear choice. There's only going to be one of two outcomes. We're either going to get more of the chaos and division under the Tories, or we're going to turn a page with Labour. And when we started selecting our candidates, I was very clear with the team. I wanted the highest quality candidates on the pitch for the task ahead. In relation to Diane, as I've said before, no decision has been taken to bar her, and she's obviously now got the whip back. Thank you. Dave from The Mirror. Dave.
Hi, thank you, Sir Keir. Yeah, Dave Boat from the Daily Mirror. More than 100 WASPy women are dying each day. What do you plan to do on compensation for those affected by the scandal, and when will you deliver this?
Well, the Ombudsman's report came out, I don't know how many months ago now, and the government should have responded, but they haven't done so. Yet again, what they've done, same with the doctors' strikes and all the other problems, they're just unaddressed. They're going to leave them to the other side of the election. So we'll have to pick it up and look at those proposals, but it is shocking that the government hasn't dealt with it. What I'm not going to do is stand here and make promises that I don't think we can afford. So we will look at the Ombudsman's recommendations. If we're privileged enough to come into power, the government should have looked at them. It should have responded. It's kicked it into the long grass. There's a long list of challenges that we will pick up if we're privileged to come into power, and this is one of them. Thank you. John from The Times.
Hi, John Boothman from The Times. Right across Scotland, 15 health projects have been delayed, health capital projects, which would do a lot to reducing waiting lists and waiting times. In a spirit of cooperation with the Scottish Government, will the Labour Party put in investment early to quicken and stop those delays?
Anna, do you want to lead on this, and then I'll come back in on it.
Look, you're right, John. There have been mass cuts to capital projects under this SNP government. I feel as if Jackie has jolted you to ask this question as well, Jackie, because Jackie's desperate to get those capital investments back up, and she's right to be. But I think we've also got to look at what the SNP is doing with its own capital investment budget. We're not very far, for example, from Ferguson Marine, where they have taken a ferry project which is now multiplied in terms of the cost, over £250 million wasted of capital investment. That is money that could have been used to build those treatment centres across the country. So, of course, there's a role for a UK Labour government, what it does in other parts of the UK, but actually we have got to better spend that money here in Scotland under this SNP government.
And that's why it's an important step for us in terms of putting the NHS central. Obviously, what we've pledged is for the extra appointments in England, 40,000 a week, but that has a knock-on effect for Scotland. That could be translated into 160,000 appointments. I think make a material difference. And Anas is very, very clear. If he were working with us, he would straight away pick that up, those 160,000 appointments. If the SNP are saying they're not going to do that, then I think they've got a lot of questions to answer in relation to health here in Scotland, when under their watch, 1 in 6 people are on the waiting list. That is shocking. 1 in 6 people in Scotland on a waiting list. You know, that has such impact on each and every person on the list, the discomfort, the lack of ability to do what they want to do, sometimes really serious consequences of not being able to be seen quickly enough. And, of course, it has a massive impact on the economy, because if you've got lots of people on a waiting list, your economy is never going to thrive in the way that you want. Thank you. Chris from the Daily Record.
Hi, over here, Keir. It's Chris McCall from the Daily Record. There's been much debate in Scotland in recent days about Michael Matheson, the former SNP minister, who was recently suspended by Holyrood, but so far refused to resign as an MSP. Do you think he should resign, and do you think Holyrood should follow Westminster's example and introduce a recall petition that would allow voters to kick out rule-breaking MSPs?
I can imagine I know what Keir's answer is to this as well, but let me just say that the way the SNP have tried to downplay this over the last week has been nothing short of shameful. You've had John Swinney play the Boris Johnson and Conservative Party playbook, where they'd rather attack the integrity of Parliament rather than call out the actions of one of their own. The actions that are in question here are not of individual members of a standards committee. The actions that should be in question is that we had a public figure who attempted to misuse £11,000 of public money, who lied to the public, lied to Parliament, lied to journalists, and actually also lied to the First Minister at the time, who then repeated the lie, even though he then was later told the truth. And rather than coming to Parliament and apologising for that behaviour and demanding that Michael Matheson step down, or at least introduce that petition of recall, John Swinney instead chose to back one of his pals rather than do the right thing. And it's the perfect example of what we attack rightly the Tories for putting their party before they put their country. The exact same applies to John Swinney as well. This is a man that is putting his party before the country. And on the second part, absolutely we need a right to recall in Holyrood.
I'd simply add that the parallels with the Tories and the SNP are very striking now. You've got chaos and division, both in Westminster and with the SNP. You've got unelected leader after unelected leader in Westminster and with the SNP. And now on standards in public life, you've got the SNP picking up the Boris Johnson playbook. I mean, that's how striking the examples are. So, of course, as Anas says, there should be a recall petition. It's worked well in our Parliament. And we've had a number of by-elections, which we've very much enjoyed.
Including Michael's.
We have Michael Shanks here. Chloe from the Eye.
Thank you. Chloe Chaplin from the Eye newspaper. You said today you want to get working on Great British Energy within months. Can you be more specific and confirm to voters if it will be fully up and running within a year? And just on Diane Abbott, will she get a decision on her candidacy today?
Look, on GB Energy, we can get going on this straight away and set it up. We've got advanced plans to do so. And I know that without being complacent, we have to be ready to hit the ground running, prepared for government. So we will pick that up, we will run with it from day one, and we will certainly, after the first year, be in a position to show the real difference that it is capable of making. And that's why our plans are not going to be begun on day one of a Labour government. They're already begun. What I want them to do on day one of a Labour government is to be implemented. I mean, on Diane, I don't think there's much I can add to what I've said. No decision has been taken to bar her. She's got the whip back, and the NEC will take a decision. Thank you. Andrew from the Herald.
Hi, Sir Keir. Andrew Learmonth from the Herald. We've got the logo for Great British Energy. I think we've got the website being launched today as well, but we still don't know where it's going to be. Why are you not telling us where it's going to be? Is it because there's not really any votes for you to win in the North East at this election? Are you holding off to next year? Give Anas a wee boost for the Holyrood election?
Look, I tell you, it will be in Scotland, that is for sure. That decision is taken. The website is up and running, which is, really important. I've been to Scotland, as I say, many, many times in the last couple of years. Almost everywhere I go in Scotland, I get the question from wherever I am to say, why shouldn't it be based here? But no decision has
Martin's
been
that
taken.
This morning, is he?
We will take it. But the energy sector is obviously very important to Scotland, centred in Aberdeen. So that makes a powerful case. But we haven't decided. We will make a decision about it. But it will definitely be here in Scotland. That's a major, I think it's a sort of a down payment, I hope, on the way that we will work together with Scotland, because I think one of the damaging things of the last few years has been the conflict between the Westminster government and the government here in Scotland, trying to fight with each other, argue with each other, not being able to work together because both parties are putting their party first and not Scotland first. I want to change that. I want to make sure that actually the Westminster Government and the Scottish Government work together delivering for Scotland. That is why the vote is so important, because at the heart of that, if people vote Labour here in Scotland, we'll have Scottish Labour MPs sitting on the government benches making sure that we're delivering for Scotland. That's my ambition. I think it's a real game changer for Scotland if we can get that over the line. And that's why I say if you want change, you have to vote for change. And this is a real chance at this election to do so. Thank you so much. David from the Scotsman. David.
Hi, thank you, David Ball from the Scotsman. Scotland's in the middle of a drugs death crisis. Inverclyde in particular has been very badly affected. Will you work with the Scottish Government and bring about some of those reforms that they've been calling for Westminster to provide for years, to treat the crisis more of a health emergency rather than to criminalise people?
Can I just say, first of all, on that, David, absolutely this is a health emergency. One thing that we cannot escape from is that we have the exact same drugs laws in every part of the UK, but we have 3 times the number of drug deaths here in Scotland. And frankly, I find it really shameful that the SNP want to use that emergency, where people are losing their lives every single day, as another grievance tool between Scotland and the UK. I'll tell you how we can address the drug death crisis. Of course, partly it's safe consumption, which is a pilot that's happening already. But actually, we need to reverse the cuts to the alcohol and drug partnerships. We have to get more investment in the rehabilitation beds that have been promised by the SNP and not delivered. And we've got to make sure we're supporting those communities around, for example, family breakdown, those that have mental health crises, lack of access to employment, lack of access to adequate levels of housing, and we now have a housing emergency here in Scotland. So let's not turn this into a constitutional fight. Let's instead have government action to change people's lives so we can address that drugs emergency.
So the question for the SNP is not who can you find to blame, what constitutional excuse can you make, but how did this happen on your watch? How did this get so bad on your watch? It's shocking to see the statistics and the human beings that are behind those statistics. How did this happen on their watch? And if they concentrated on that question, we'd all be a lot better off. Thank you so much. Sophia from The Sun. Sophia.
Hiya, thank you, Sir Keir. There are some reports this morning suggesting that you flew here on a private jet. Is that true? And just very, very quickly, you worked with Diane Abbott for a long time, very closely on the same team. When did you personally last speak to her?
So far as the travel is concerned, yes, we did use a private jet because we needed to get very quickly to Scotland from Wales yesterday, and we have to use the most efficient form of transport in the middle of a very, very busy general election campaign. We offset the carbon. We always do whenever we use transport in the air. So that's the approach we're taking. But it is a practical situation in a busy. We've got 5 weeks to take our argument to the country. I need to get across the country to speak to as many people as possible. And from time to time, we have to do it as efficiently as possible. But yes, we do offset it. In relation to Diane, I think I spoke to her a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, in the Commons. Thank you. Matthew from The Economist.
Thank you, Sir Keir. Matthew Holhurst from The Economist. There's a poll in The Scotsman today that shows that even though Labour's polling is up, still 48% of Scots support independence. Now, can you be clear? Is it your goal and your expectation for that sustained level of support for independence to have fallen after 5 years of a Labour government under the change that you're setting out? Or do you see this as a prospective UK Prime Minister as an immovable fact of Scottish politics that you simply have to navigate?
What I would first say is that I do understand the sentiment that leads a number of people to say, after 14 years of being shackled to this Tory government in Westminster, we'd be better off out. I do understand why people are driven to that conclusion after 14 years of chaos, division, going nowhere, not delivering for Scotland. This election has the potential to be a game changer. Because if people want change, if they want a better Scotland, a different relationship across the UK between the 4 nations, that is part of the change that we can bring about in this election. And I think that's really important because I am able to say that we will work with people in Scotland. We will deliver for Scotland. We won't be in conflict with Scotland, and we can change. All of us know that we need change in Scotland. We want to embrace that change, bring about that change, and I do think that will have an impact across Scotland. I don't think the constitutional issue is the number one issue or the priority. When you've got an economy that isn't working, when you've got people in low-paid work, insecure work, when you've got 1 in 6 people on the waiting list, I think the priority is to deal with those issues, and we can do that from day one if we are privileged to come into power. And that's why we have chosen these as our first 6 steps. They are important down payments on the change that we want to bring about, but they're also indicators of our priorities. We start with the economy, we work through all of the others. And I think that, as I say, respectfully understanding why some people do feel or have felt up until now that it is simply impossible to work with the Westminster government, that, I hope, I'm determined to change and start showing so many people in Scotland that a Westminster government can, if it puts its shoulder to the wheel, work with Scotland to deliver for Scotland. I'm determined to do that. Thank you so much. Thank you all very much. Thank you for coming this morning. Really lovely to see you. Thank you for your warm welcome. Thank you.